3:30, Sonny Smith talking SEC college basketball. 4 o'clock, Frank Duffy in Atlanta talking LSU SEC football. 4:15, Matt Wyatt, former Mississippi State quarterback, host of a daily sports radio show down in Madison, Ridgeland, Jackson, all over Mississippi. He'll be joining us. And around 4:30, Cole Kubelik, SEC Network analyst, football analyst. He's also doing XFL games. Really interesting conversation that we had, did an interview because he is actually flying out to Los Angeles right now. He's also a co-host of Three Man Front, a daily sports radio show in Birmingham, 10 to until 2 on Jocks 94.5 FM. Shane, SEC basketball, no way you can say this season the league is as deep as last year when there were, I think, 7 teams went to the NCAA tournament. This year, like maybe 3 teams, Kentucky, LSU, and Auburn, they're all tied 9-2, a 3-way tie for first place in the SEC. They are almost certain locks to go to the NCAA tournament. You've then got teams like Mississippi State, who is big and strong, and they're built like a team from the past. We're going to get Matt Wyatt to talk more about them. South Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, Arkansas. Those are teams that are out there on the edge. It just depends on how strong they close and what they do in the SEC tournament. It's hard to believe there are 7 games left in the SEC basketball season before we go to the conference tournament, but it is happening, and it's happening real fast. And so you look at college basketball, the growth, Shane, in just the last few years. Again, Mike Slive fired the first shot over the bow when he said, look, these contracts from ESPN and CBS, they're paying us an awful lot of money. We've got to put a better product. It'd be like having a 5-star restaurant that Gordon Ramsay ran, and then you had somebody like Uncle Charlie is the new head chef trying to serve meals that Gordon Ramsay was and charging the same prices or more. So very difficult, but I really think that it's been a great thing. It's been healthy for the SEC to really start to emphasize basketball. And we hear it a lot, but the days of the football-only schools in the SEC are gone. But you could even spend a whole show, though, talking about what in the world is going on up at Vanderbilt. Football struggling, basketball, baseball, hey, national champions. Great. Kamara Rocker's back. Tim Corbin, great baseball coach at Vanderbilt, but baseball doesn't pay the bills. Basketball really doesn't. Football is the engine that drives it. Now, everybody in the SEC received a check for a little over $44 million this year as part of the revenue sharing in the SEC. I'm going to tell you right now, that is not enough in today's world to keep your program at the top or near the top. And the fan bases in the SEC, go back 15 years ago, a lot of schools' entire athletic budgets were not $44 million, Shane.
I know. It's come a long way. But like, okay, you would think, like, say at Vanderbilt, who did they got Stackhouse as their coach now?
Yes, and he came from the NBA.
And you would think that with a similar circumstance like with Penny Hardaway here, you would think that they really wouldn't have that much trouble recruiting there at Vanderbilt.
Well, look, Bryce Drew was there for 3 years. Last year was the first time in Vanderbilt basketball history they had a losing season at Memorial Gymnasium, the home court of Vanderbilt basketball. And it's the big social event in Nashville and Middle Tennessee to attend and support Vanderbilt basketball. They are struggling again this year. They're going to be lucky to win 14 games. They'll be lucky. They may be lucky to win 12. It's a real struggle. You took a coach from the Grizzlies. He's got NBA experience. He played college basketball. We all know at North Carolina he was a heck of a player. But that doesn't always translate to success on the college level. It's very difficult to succeed in college basketball unless you've had some time to learn how the game is played. It's changed a lot. I don't even think the officials out there today can keep up with the game. Just as an example, you look at the horrible officiating, especially if you're a road team. you're not gonna get many calls.
I was curious to how we were talking yesterday on a sports call that, I think like with Penny Hardaway being here, there now you're starting to get these whispers from fans and stuff. Okay, is this all it's cracked up to be? With Penny being here, and then you look over there at Stackhouse at Vanderbilt. Yeah, sure, Memphis is a lot easier to recruit, but are those whispers going to start getting louder here?
Yeah, I don't think they are, and I think people will be crazy to start attacking Penny in just his second year. Look around in basketball now. When I want to give you two examples. One, look at Bruce Pearl when he came to Auburn. He took over the dumpster fire of the SEC, which was at that time Auburn basketball. I mean, fans weren't going to the games, and if they did, they wanted their money back. Okay, it was terrible. Tony Barbee just either didn't care or didn't try, or all of the above. I say all of the above. It took Bruce Pearl, his first few years, he had some success, had some wins. He had that good run in the tournament in his first year, but then the next couple of years, they struggled. It was in the fourth year that Auburn, having lost Austin Wiley and D'Angelo Purifoy in late September to that FBI ring operation undercover, a lot of schools had to sit players. Both of them were gone for the whole year. Two of Auburn's best players. Auburn won the SEC that year. They were co-champions with Tennessee, but they held the tiebreaker because they won the first conference game of the year up in Knoxville. Last year, Auburn won the SEC tournament championship with an 11-7 regular season record and made it to the Final Four. A double dribble. Anyway, then look at Will Wade. Jimmy Ott from Baton Rouge, ESPN 104.5, was on the show last Friday. Jimmy made a great point. The last year of the Johnny Jones regime basketball at LSU was so bad. He said, I don't think there were 300 people at the Maravich Assembly Center for the last SEC home game at LSU when Johnny Jones was there. I mean, he was a dead man walking, okay? Will Wade's been there 3 years. In his second year, LSU was the regular season SEC champion. Right now, they're at 9-2, and they're tied in a three-way tie with Kentucky and Auburn for first place in the SEC. All three teams 9-2 with 7 games left. It's going to be a fight to the finish. Will Wade doing a great job. So you got to give it time, and to pull any Memphis fans that would say, hey, Penny, he's just not getting it done, have never watched plants grow, watched anything develop. You're going to have to give it time, and I believe you got the right guy to make it happen. All right, we're going to go now to Barrett Salih from SiriusXM CBS Sports over in Atlanta. And Barrett, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, you cover a lot. SEC, college basketball, football, you cover it all. In your mind, what you're seeing in the SEC basketball this year, I made a comment a minute ago. I don't know if you heard it. I think the conference is down a little bit, but those top three teams, Auburn, Kentucky, and LSU, they're in a three-way tie. It's exciting from that standpoint, but is the SEC going forward with some of the new coaches we brought in the league in good shape?
I mean, I think it is. I mean, I'm not the biggest basketball guy in the world. I mean, I really only start covering basketball, after National Signing Day. But I mean, the excitement that if you watch an Auburn game, the excitement there is real, and the way Bruce gets those guys to play in and buy into his system, it's made a basketball school out of a place where it used to be a basketball wasteland. Kentucky's always going to be Kentucky. I think Mike White of Florida does a good job, although they've been up and down. They need to get things going in the right direction. And then LSU, for all that Will Wade has gone through, to find a way not only to make it through last year, make the tournament, but also, get out to this hot start in conference play the way they have. I think that the front runners doing fine. I think the teams that were supposed to be pretty good, or you thought could be pretty good, that have disappointed are the reason maybe it's getting weighed down a little bit. Both Mississippi schools, probably the two that sort of jump to mind. Maybe, when you look at Georgia, the fact that they're wasting, Edwards' 1 year of talent is probably another one where you look at and say, okay, maybe it's not there yet.
Yeah, but it's fun watching it happen. Let's talk about football. We just had the second signing period last week, and it's not nearly, certainly not the drama that we had in the past. But of course, this is the third year of the early signing period. Which teams in the SEC did the most to help themselves out, especially at areas like offensive line, quarterback, receiver, that would transfer to immediate help next year? Because the SEC, it's got to happen now, or the fans go crazy.
Yeah, I think anytime you look at the recruiting classes, Georgia is just ridiculously good. Now, the problem is they need a lot of help along the offensive line, and while they recruit a ton of great offensive linemen, it's a lot to ask an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid to step in and play, grown man ball with adults, and that might be what they're asking some of those kids to do. So I don't know if it'll translate to immediate impact. I still think when you look at Bryce Young and what his upside is for Alabama, it's higher than Mac Jones. But the blessing in disguise of Tua's injury is that Alabama, at the very least, knows sort of a baseline of what starter Mac Jones is capable of doing, and he did a lot. You go back and look at that Iron Bowl. Aside from those two passes, he was flawless. And just so happens those two passes were pick sixes, which did not go according to plan, obviously. But Bryce Young comes in, different animal, different upside. So you have that on top of what they're getting back from a production standpoint. The fact that Najee's coming back and Dylan Moses, that's big for them. I think for Auburn, it's another interesting one because you've got very offensive line heavy, but you look across that recruiting class, and you've kind of got every base covered. It's a pretty balanced class. In fact, I talked to some folks down there, and they kind of joked about the fact that you could take this signing class and create a team. Like they could play both sides of the ball. You could find a spot for all of these people that were that time because it's that balance. So I think that's interesting. But again, you look at a guy like Tank Bigsby, who's going to probably come in and be DJ Williams' backup. And running back now that Whitlow's gone and Sean Chivers is still there. So, you have guys like that that'll make an immediate impact. But I think in terms of long-term sustainability, in terms of effectiveness, Auburn might be up there because, barring some unforeseen circumstances, there's going to be a spot for a lot of these dudes to play, if not this year, in 2021.
Yeah, and everybody wants to win, and they want to win right away. Kirby's first 4 years compared to Mark Richt's first 4 years, people are looking at that. It's all over the blogosphere and the internet, but that does matter because perception's everything when it comes to recruiting. What do you think the differences are between Kirby Smart and Mark Richt?
I think the record comparison is a little bit short-sighted because there's a clear difference in what Georgia's expectations are. I had just graduated college and started working in media in downtown Atlanta in regional TV. When Rick got that job, and they were just excited to be in the discussion. The 2002 SEC East title. They were just excited to be there. And it was like that. In 03 and 04, they were just excited to be in the thick of this thing because it had been more than a decade. And in 05, when they won the SEC, sort of the same thing when Shockley was there. This is different. The recruiting classes demand more. The talent level in Athens demand a higher standard. Kirby has led that program to a higher standard. They've gone into championship game weekend each of the last 3 seasons with a shot at the playoff on the line. No questions asked. You win the SEC championship game, you're in the playoff. In 17 they did it, in 18 and 19 they obviously did not. That's what the expectation, the goal for any top tier program should be. Bar none. You put Clemson in the SEC, they're probably going to be in that same exact boat because they're going to lose some championship games to a team like Alabama or whoever. Georgia just happens to be in a conference where it's not a cakewalk in your conference championship game, and a little harder to make the playoff. But the most you can ask for any program is to give yourself a shot. And Kirby in 3 of his 4 years, so he's batting .750. That'll get you to the Hall of Fame. He's going into championship weekend with the playoff spot on the line, attainable, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's something that Mark Richt was never able to accomplish, and it's something that every coach, regardless of where you are and who you are, that's about the best you can ask for. Because while you're great at your job, if you're a football coach, there are 100 other coaches out there that are still really good, and there are a lot of different rosters that are still really talented, and you're going to get beat. And Kirby's gotten beat, and the fact that he's gotten beat in meaningful games so late in the year tells me that he's built that program to a different spot.
It really does. Looking at the SEC East race, Florida last year, another 11-2 record, but just unable to. They fell a touchdown short against Georgia. But Florida, Kyle Trask, the Gators, they're going to be better. Tennessee won 7 of their last 8 games. Jeremy Pruitt just made a bunch of changes on his coaching staff. Tracy Rocker, defensive line coach, is now at South Carolina. I think he's coached now on the staff of 6 different SEC schools. But everybody that Jeremy Pruitt brought into Tennessee, he's now, including Jay Graham, former running back, he brought him off the Texas A&M staff. Barrett, 2 of the coaches on Jeremy Pruitt's staff at Tennessee at one time were named National Recruiter of the Year. Is he taking the playbook from Nick Saban and running with it, and what Kirby Smart's doing as well? Even though he doesn't have a talent-rich state like Georgia, he's right on top of it, and a lot of years gets more players out of Georgia than Georgia does.
Yeah, he's doing the right thing. I mean, he's trying to find a way to get the talent in and then figure a way to coach them up from there. Because a lot of those coaches as recruiters, they're not the best X's and O's coaches, but getting the players in the door first is what matters. And so, if you have to find recruiters that still need some fine tuning in terms of their actual football coaching acumen, that's the best way to go about it. And so he's done that. And I think he's doing it at a time where it's not too late, but I think Butch Jones did a disservice to the program's long-term health when he failed to lock down Nashville 5-6 years ago as a Tennessee recruiting hotbed. Because since then, Nashville has blown up. It's Train City. There are players everywhere. And Tennessee hasn't been able to lock that city down when it really should. So if Butch Jones had won those SEC championships in 2015 or 2016 when they were right there on the doorstep, it might be easier for Jeremy Pruitt, or Butch Jones might still have a job to go recruit Nashville. So, it's a little harder now than it probably should be, but Pruitt's going about his business, doing it the right way. And, I think that paid off last year. I think a lot of those coaches, found their voices last year. Players bought in last year. And the fact that he didn't lose that team, Pruitt didn't lose that team after week 2, speaks volumes as to, how he's viewed and perceived internally amongst his program, his peers, his administrators. So, yeah, he's doing the right thing, doing the right way. It's just in the SEC East, it's harder than people, I think, give it credit for, because you still have Georgia doing what Georgia does, and Dan Mullen's a really good coach in Florida. The hardest thing for all these other schools outside of Florida and Georgia is the fact that you've got a guy in Dan Mullen who, at the very least, is going to make that program a consistent 9 or 10 win team. And beyond that, it should be easy to take the next step too. So I think a lot of those coaches outside of Kirby Smart were and still are pretty unhappy of Dan Mullen being there, because he should be able to coach that team to either not a New Year's Six bowl, but then a Florida bowl every single year.
One more school in the East, right in your backyard, South Carolina. Go back to 1892. That's 128 years of college football. The Gamecocks have one conference championship. 1969, a 7-4 record. They won the ACC. Remember, a 7-4 record won that conference. With what Clemson is doing right now, and you can argue that Clemson's rise under Dabo, the first year he was there, he took over midway for Tommy Bowden, who'd been there for 9.5 years, and he was fired. I think they went 7-6, then 9-4, and then 6-7. He brings in Chad Morris. They go, they win 10 or 11 games 4 straight years. You got Taj Boyd and then Deshaun Watson. then they really took off. Mirror that with Florida State's disintegration and Jimbo leaving, and then Willie Taggart and the gang that couldn't shoot straight, the old Don Knotts film. It was a disaster. Clemson's on the rise. South Carolina, they get Will Muschamp there. Coaching waiting at Texas, goes to Florida, doesn't do well, goes to Auburn a year, goes to South Carolina. He's a great recruiter. He puts the staff together. They just aren't getting it done. How can they expect anything different with Dabo doing what he's doing, dominating a conference? Now, Mike Norvell's at Florida State, but what's got to change for South Carolina? They did it under Spurrier, 3 straight 11-win seasons. But under Will Muschamp, is it going to ever happen, do you think?
I mean, I don't think South Carolina can ever do that again. 3 straight 11-win seasons, and then none of those 3 included the SEC East Championship season in 2010. That was a confluence of perfect circumstances for Steve Spurrier in South Carolina because they had kids not only that were talented, but they had generational type players who grew up in the state as South Carolina fans that they recruited, Lattimore, Clowney, and Stephon Gilmore. So I don't think that's going to happen ever again. And if that's the expectation for Will Muschamp, then he's going to get fired, and every other coach after that's going to get fired. It's not going to happen. But I think Will's done a good job in sort of reconstructing his coaching staff. You mentioned Rocker. Getting Bobo is, I think, huge for them because I think he's unfairly criticized in the SEC, in some SEC circles. He's a really good coach. They've got the foundation with Walensky. And I think South Carolina needs to be one of those teams that once every 3 years they're in the discussion in November. Years that they're not, they're still a good, solid 7-8 win team. They can do that. But the problem, you mentioned Clemson, but it's also the fact that they've had a hard time, locking down the few players that are South Carolina products who can help you win championships. And on top of that, there really haven't been a ton out there that are at that elite level. So I think there's a lot of different things working against Will Muschamp right now, working against South Carolina right now. I like Will. I think he's figured out who he needs to be as a coach. I think he's unfairly criticized, but if they let him go after a 7-win season this year, then I don't think they have a proper view of where they sit in the echelon of college football.
Yeah, it's so competitive. There's nowhere to hide. We talk about it. It's like, trying to be in a bar at 3 o'clock in the morning. You want to pick a fight. There's a Navy SEAL serving you drinks to your right, Delta Force to your left, Army Ranger. You know the story. Who are you going to get out the side door? There's nowhere to hide. Now, looking over here in the West, Auburn, Alabama, LSU, 10 of the last 11 SEC championships have been won by SEC West teams. We know what the East was doing prior to that. Do you see that changing anytime soon?
Yeah, maybe this year with Georgia or maybe Florida.
Okay.
Just because it feels like now that you don't have those teams that slide into the SEC championship game out of the East that are, just sort of okay. I mean, you go back to, to the early 2000s, you've had some bad SEC East teams make the SEC championship game. Georgia in 2003, the year after they won it, was not good. Tennessee in 2007, that team was not very good. The Florida teams, not the Tebow years, but the ones with McElwain, not good. Missouri in 2014, not good. You had some teams pop up like 2012 Georgia, which was a really, really good team. But aside from that, the 11 Georgia team was okay. So I just think that you look at them now, Georgia's going to be in that discussion every year. They've proven that. They are in that discussion every single year. Florida has been dancing around the periphery the last 2 years, and I think is going to stay there. So, yeah, I mean, is the East going to be what the West is top to bottom? I don't know. Probably not as consistently just because, even in the down years, I think the Mississippi schools can still be competitive because they've got a pretty good talent base to choose from. We'll see about Arkansas. But top end, you're not going to get those pretenders in the SEC championship game from the East as often as you used to.
Okay. Hey, Barrett, I know you've got to go. We want to thank you so much for joining us. Tell people before you go how they can follow you, and we would love to have you back on again next week if you can, because this was a great spot.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Barrett Salee, Instagram at Barrett_Salee. Hit me up on or download the CBS Sports app. Watch CBS Sports HQ streaming 24/7, 365 across all platforms on the CBS Sports app. And yeah, SiriusXM this Sunday morning, and then I don't know when else next week, but at some point I'll be on. Just keep it there.
That's 9 a.m. to 12 noon on Sundays. Sirius XM? Okay. Hey, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Great report. Before we take a break, let me say something about some of our sponsors. Pimentos and Holiday Ham. Since 1993, Trey Jordan and his father, Don Jordan, they've been here in Memphis. They started out with the hams and the pimento cheese, and now Pimentos. They have 2 locations, 6450 Poplar Avenue in East Memphis, right before you get to Kirby on Poplar and Kirby if you're heading east. They have $5 burgers every day during the month of February after 5. Those are the fry burgers, the black and blue burger with the blue cheese, the cowboy burger, the sunrise burger that's got an egg sunny side up on it. They've got wings. They've got quesadillas. They've got margarita Monday, quesadillas, burger and beer Tuesdays. They're open till 9 every day, including Sundays. Pimentos isn't just for lunch, it's for dinner too. Also, 3751 South Houston Levee in Collierville. Check them out. Great place to go. Across the street, another one of our sponsors, 6450 Poplar Avenue, Rocky's Alterations, men's and women's alterations. If it involves a button and thread, Rocky's Alterations can take care of it. Men's suits and sport coats, they've got blazers, dress pants, dress shirts. Rocky, he is the nephew of Richard Capadia. Y'all all know him from the Joseph Bank days there at Kirby Woods Carrefour. Check him out, Rocky's Alterations, also on our website at sidelines.live. And one thing else to tell you, we're going to be right back with Sonny Smith talking SEC basketball, East, West. Well, there's no divisions anymore, but we still got the Chattahoochee dividing us. We'll be right back. This is Sidelines.
You know what my man cave needs?
What's that, Rob?
A giant screen TV with surround sound.
You should go to gaddishome.com.
That's right. They can do all of this without costing us a fortune. They can also put in the security cameras and outdoor lighting you've been wanting forever.
What are you waiting for?
Hey, check them out at gaddishome.com or on our website, sidelines.live. That's Gaddis Home Innovation.
We don't just say we care, we show we care. At Ortho One, that's the motto we live by. We place an emphasis on seeing our patients as quickly as possible without sacrificing quality in the care that each patient deserves. Our experienced orthopedic physicians, all of whom are surgeons, display a genuine interest in your personal health. A concern for your time and a friendly, skilled staff are what you can expect every time you visit one of our offices in Arlington, Collierville, and Olive Branch. Fast, quality care. That's the Ortho One difference. Check them out at ortho1.org.
If you had a crash, this or ding, go to GE Patterson and BBG. Become my inspiration.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you on Sidelines. That was a great report. Shane with Barrett Salee. We're going to have him on a lot more in the future. He really knows his stuff over in Atlanta, SiriusXM, CBS Sports. And you can check him out if you listen to SiriusXM Radio Sundays, 9 a.m., 12 noon. Barrett Salee. Want to say another word about another one of our wonderful sponsors, Matei's Garage. Family owned and in business since 1972. Matei's Garage is best known for providing quality automotive repair at a fair price. We can accommodate most makes and models, including European and Asian vehicles. Our services include everything from basic maintenance, such as oil service and tires, to major engine and transmission service. Matei's Garage, 4930 Black Road in East Memphis near the Clark Tower. They're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Larry Cervetti, he's got 3 of the best mechanics in the world. Andrew, Matt, and Dean. I know them. I take all my vehicles there. Boyd got me hooked on them. I won't go anywhere. Matei's Garage. Check them out on our website. It's sidelines.live. They are mateisgarage.com. I've known the owner, Larry Cervetti, since 1978, man. I've known him 42 years. Christian Brothers High, class of 82. UT Knoxville, class of 86. Larry, he's as good as it gets. He will take care of you. He'll work with you. Matei's Garage. We're lucky to have him as a sponsor here on Sidelines. Shane, in talking to Barrett, and I brought that question up about South Carolina. They're in the same state as Clemson. Auburn's in the same state as Alabama. Mississippi State and Ole Miss are in the same state. Rivalries and competition are good. I mean, you talk to people that grew up in a family of 7 or 8 kids. Hey, you learned to be competitive just so you could eat at breakfast, lunch, or dinner, didn't you? Yep. So I think competition's a good thing. But we talk about Tennessee a lot. I won a steamer pack from Zach, 24 crystals. I'm so excited about it. Jeremy Pruitt and Tennessee, they are positioning themselves, I think, for a good run. And this quarterback they got out of Marietta, Georgia, Harrison, Tennessee is, and everybody on that staff in Tennessee, if you can't recruit, you won't last long under Jeremy Pruitt. He is focused like a sniper. We're going to have a lot to talk about with Tennessee going forward.
Most definitely. And, I mean, they seem to be getting better each year.
Yeah.
You know, just so, I mean.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's going to be fun. Let's go to Coach Sonny Smith, Auburn basketball color analyst. And we're going to be on the air with him in just a moment. But we're going to cover a lot. We don't have long. Coach Smith is busy. Auburn heading up to Missouri to play Missouri tomorrow. That's a 5 o'clock tip-off, and that is on ESPN2 tomorrow. A lot of college basketball. Tonight, as my dad said, this is just a nothing night, really, in sports. Not a whole lot going on, but, hey, you know, you can always watch replays of the old games or what have you. Mississippi State and Arkansas playing tomorrow. Ole Miss at Kentucky, Georgia at Texas A&M, LSU at Alabama, Auburn at Missouri, Tennessee at South Carolina, Vanderbilt at Florida. Really, we talk about that tie up there at the top. Auburn, Kentucky, and LSU at 9 and 2. And look at what's happened with Auburn. 4 of the last 5 games they've gone to overtime, but they won them all. I think playing in close games, and when you win those close games, it makes your team mentally tougher. But winning is the most important thing, and being in a position to win. And I think Auburn is used to it. Coach Sonny Smith, welcome to Sidelines. I know we don't have long today. Y'all are heading to Missouri. Thank you so much for joining us. And what's in the water down there in Auburn with all these overtime games?
Well, it's just a team that people go after harder because of their record, and they know that they're not overly talented. They're just a team that plays hard, plays together, and they make critical shots. They'll go into a game and won't be shooting well at all, but somebody will ignite them with a big shot. Somebody like McCormick or somebody like you just name it. And they've been waiting a while for the big man, Austin Wiley, to really dominate a game. And we played Alabama the last game, and he was a dominant player in that game. So it was they're starting to get together more options than they had, and they're still playing so well together. Shamir Dowdy probably is their best player from a standpoint of a go-to guy, but they're a solid basketball team. Not a great team, but they play so hard that they beat great teams.
Yeah, you've got a three-way tie now: Auburn, Kentucky, and LSU all at 9-2. And then go back to that Auburn-Alabama game Wednesday night. Kyra Lewis had a triple-double for Alabama, their point guard. 10 points, 10 rebounds, 13 assists, and they lost. Alabama also hit 22 three-pointers, most in SEC history. Hard to believe, and they lost. What about Alabama? Is John Petty an NBA player and Shackelford? Okay, good. Because I think he
is an NBA player,
yeah.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Listen, man for man, Kentucky, Alabama could line up and start. There's four of their starters start for any team in the league. There's just something about that team that they're so good, yet they have trouble winning some games. And I don't know what it is. I don't even have an idea what it is. But they're awful. Man for man, four of their starters can start for anybody. And Jones didn't play against us except with one hand. He liked to play with one hand. He's another guy, probably be a pro because of his defense. But I don't know if he can score enough to play for them. The rest of them can. Petty is a definite pro.
Yeah, he is just a great. He had 6 3-pointers. Shackelford had 7. Again, they took 59, and that's just amazing.
59. Have you ever heard of that before, Rob?
Never.
I don't believe I have.
Yeah.
I'm sure it happens.
Yeah.
But I've never been involved in a game where they shoot that many threes. And I imagine we shot quite a bit. I don't know how many we shot.
Alabama had 8 baskets made inside the paint for 2 on 25 attempts. Austin Wiley, like you mentioned, 18 points, 17 rebounds. That's like one of your former players, Charles Barkley, would have games like that, but he had a lot of them. But you don't see that much anymore. But you're right. You know way more than I do. But Austin Wiley's improvement under the basket there has been a difference maker. He gets better every game. And I hear you say it a lot. Don't throw him the ball till his feet are set. That's not the kind of player he is. Talk about that for him and all those big guys.
On the move, he doesn't catch the ball well. The reason he doesn't is because they're hammering him. You know, post players on defense in the Southeastern Conference just lash on to one another and never leave. And he'll go block to block, and they'll be banging him the whole time. And he hasn't adjusted to the kind of defense that they play as far as catching the ball on the move. And he has to be stationary and getting his guys sealed when they're throwing the ball. It's not his hands are bad; it's just how physical they are in the post. And it's really a big time thing.
You talked a lot before the season started, and you have every week about Mississippi State. They're a big team. They've got a lot of hype, and they're playing better. What do you think they're going to do these next 7 games? Do you think they can get on a run?
If anybody can, they can. You think of a place that they're not solid. They're solid at every position. They had a hard time at first until they got the point guard eligible that's playing now. His name is JP. I'm sure you know his brother was a great player the year before that. And now that they've got a point guard situation sealed, I can see them beating anybody on any night. But if there's something missing there that I don't know what it is, I don't know if the coach knows what it is, but it's a difficult thing when you cannot make shots in critical situations, and that seems to be they stay in every game. They stay ahead somewhat in every game, but they just can't stay with the program. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I know you've got to get going to the airport. So when you got to go, tell us, because I know you don't want you missing the flight. But tell us about Kermit Davis. Ole Miss seems like they're playing better lately.
Well, he's coach of the year last year, and you go over there to play him now, he's going to beat you. I mean, he is that good. And when you got good guard play like he does, his 2 guards are as good as anybody in the league. Schuler stepped up as being a scorer. And, you know, the other kid is already best scorer in the league. But he has started playing extremely well, and that's made them much better, especially at home. They're awfully tough to beat at home. He changes defenses, and they play every one of them good. He'll play a 1-3-1 zone, a 3-2 zone, a 1-1-3, a man for man, and he'll trap you. And he does great jobs of stealing passes out of the trap. So he's really doing a good job at that club.
You watched Auburn and
Tyree might be the best shooter that we've had in the league in a long time from three.
Yeah, and what you're right about Alabama. Nate Oates, first year from Buffalo, and you know he'll recruit well. They always do. An interesting game tomorrow. LSU travels to Alabama. We're talking about Alabama and their shooting. LSU has struggled. They struggled the other night with Missouri. They got the win. They lost back-to-back road games at Vandy and at Auburn. What's their mindset going into this game, and you think there's a good chance Alabama gets the win?
Well, I think Alabama can win any night.
Okay.
Now that Shackelford has stepped up as such a big-time scorer with his feet set, I don't think he missed the other night. It didn't seem, if he caught it on the wing or the dead corner, he seemed to make every shot. I didn't realize he was that good. What I couldn't realize is how they got him out of California. He went through a lot of states that would have put him on their list as a starting player as a freshman. But I'll get off of him and say, Alabama can win any game that they play because of the threats they've got offensively, and that running game that they got is hard to defend.
Yeah, looking now, another one in the East. Tennessee is at South Carolina tomorrow. Both of these teams, if they get on a run, can probably make the NCAA tournament. Who do you think has the best chance to do it of these two? And again, they're going to play tomorrow, and one of them's going to end up with a loss.
Tennessee and who?
And South Carolina in Columbia.
Oh, South Carolina's a dead set to go. I think Tennessee's got some work to do. And anytime Rick Barnes is in a situation where he got some work to do, he's going to work. And never turn your back on him. He's such a good coach. That's two of the best coaches in college basketball right there. Both of them. South Carolina is so solid in everything that they do, and now they got a little firepower, and they're beating teams on the road. West Virginia won too, and you know when you go play an ACC team on the road, you got a lot to deal with.
Yeah, and you're right. And Coach, I haven't seen that much excitement for the Iron Ball since the Sonny and Wimp days, and that's coming back. And I think Nate Oates hit. What I really liked to see was the sportsmanship. And Bruce Pearl, I mean, he said that last year. He goes, "Hey, I recruited 6 or 7 of these Alabama kids really hard. You get to know them when you recruit them." But Isaac Okoro got hurt in the game. That's the last question. I know you got to go.
Yeah.
That hamstring injury. What do you think?
You talking about Okoro?
Yes, sir.
He's a pro if he learns how to shoot the ball better. And no, not so much learn to shoot. If he becomes willing to take more shots. They've started running isolation plays for him now, and he really has reacted to it well. As far as him playing, he's got a strain, not a sprain, of the hamstring. And it may not be the hamstring, but it's in that area. So I don't know. It'll be game time decision on whether he plays or not. My best guess is that he won't. And you know, with D'Angelo Purefoy out, semi out, that's going to be difficult. But yet, Missouri is hard to beat at Missouri, so you can't go in there with 2 of your starters out and expect to still win the game. It's going to be a tough game.
Yes, sir. Coach, thank you so much. Have a safe trip up there. Thank you so much.
You, Rob.
You bet. Thank you. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be right back. You're listening to Sidelines. Check us out at sidelines.live and check out our sponsors on our website. We're not here without them.
What you want from me? What you want from me? And try to buy you pretty hard the price too high. Baby, you got me like gold. You love when I fall apart. So you can put me together and throw me against the wall. Baby, you got me like gold.
Where did you get that tailgate beer?
Cardo Safe. Cardo Safe.
Where are the best liquor deals?
Cardo Safe. Cardo Safe.
Family owned and in business since 1972, Matei's Garage is best known for providing quality automotive repair at a fair and reasonable price. We can accommodate most makes and models, including European and Asian vehicles, as well as all American makes. Our services include everything from basic maintenance, such as oil service and tires, to major engine and transmission service. Located at 4930 Black Road in East Memphis, near Clark Tower, Matei's Garage is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. And I've known Larry Cervetti, a 1982 Christian Brothers High School graduate and 1986 graduate of the University of Tennessee, for 42 years. It's hard to find someone better than Larry. He's as good as it gets. Check him out on our website, mateisgarage.com.
Your new kitchen looks fabulous.
I couldn't have done it without the Kitchens Unlimited team. They captured my style and kept it within my budget.
I just love the materials you used. Were you ever worried how it would look?
No, not at all. My designer provided detailed drawings and made sure I understood everything. Their great service continues after the install. I got a custom kitchen with the exact style and details I wanted.
Wow, it sounds like you're going to miss them.
Not for long. They also do bathrooms.
You can reach the Kitchens Unlimited team at 3550 Summer Avenue or on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
Again, Rob Brown back here with you. Sidelines on a Friday afternoon. The sun came out. I got up this morning. I get up every morning at 5:35 to go swim over at the Newber Y on Quince, and Audrey and I were getting up. It was actually light, Shane, this morning at 6:30. It's been dark every day. I think it's been raining for a month. I feel like I'm over in the British Isles, and the sun came out. It's hard to believe, but we are in the middle of winter still. There's 21 degrees last night, and we've got a lot of winter left. Not even close to being out of this. But man, it is absolutely gorgeous outside. Take advantage of these nice days. Why couldn't we have had more cold weather like this up north in the Mississippi Flyway during duck season? We needed it so badly. We didn't have much cold weather. Again, beginning to wonder where winter goes, and we're kind of in that, I don't know, what do you want to call it, whatever it is, but
transition zone.
Yeah, we are. But the ducks just they're going to come now because duck season into January 31st. I'll see them around a lot. Let me say something real quick about our title sponsor, Duncan Williams Asset Management. Duncan Williams in business in Memphis since 1969. They are our title sponsor. They are committed to Memphis and all of their clients, making their lives better. Check them out at DWAM, their website, sidelines.live. Check out the website for Duncan Williams Asset Management. We are lucky to have them, glad to have them as a title sponsor. Let me say, got an email, Dwight from Jackson, Mississippi, the bold new city. He's asking where the Rebel Chef, where Chef Roger is. Will he be back anytime soon? Yes, he's going to be back, and he's cooked several meals for Chad Kelly, former Ole Miss quarterback. And he's also gotten to know Javon Patterson from Petal, Mississippi, who is a member of the Indianapolis Colts. He is having a lot of fun. He's living up in Indianapolis now. He is a rebel. He's from Yorkshire, over in the old country in England, but he is a dyed-in-the-wool Ole Miss rebel hottie toddy. So, we'd love it if Chef Roger could call in. Any recipe that Roger gives us is always going to be good. We love it. He's part of the team. Of course, people don't really tailgate with basketball like they do football, usually it's so cold outside they don't really want to do it. But hey, it is a lot of fun. Man, he is the best chef on the planet. All right, 901-324-7490, 901-452-3094. We're going to be joined in just a few minutes by Frank Duffy over in Atlanta, talking some LSU football and basketball. Also, the Atlanta sports scene. Atlanta, Shane, I think, is the New York of college athletics when it comes to the media. Atlanta and Charlotte, really. ESPN, for whatever reason, has the SEC network right in the heart of ACC country. But they put that hub there for ESPN for the Southeast there. It really needs to be in Atlanta. Hey, I'd love Memphis to have it, but Atlanta is so big. And Atlanta really is 40-plus towns that are all there together that are called Atlanta. The city of Atlanta itself isn't half as big as Memphis, but that's wild. Hey, lots of basketball. Again, we talked about this a minute ago. We've got a whole bunch of games coming up this weekend. I like that Alabama hosting LSU. Those two teams played just a few weeks ago. And Sonny Smith is right. Alabama, they can beat anybody. When they get on a roll, John Petty is as good a shooter as there is in college basketball. Kyra Lewis, the point guard. Last year, he was the youngest player in Division I basketball. These are all Alabama guys. John Petty's out of Huntsville. If anything, like a guy I work with said, John Petty will get an NBA contractor endorsement for the hair. I mean, he could double as Bob Marley. The guy's incredible. And he is just a stone-cold assassin with that basketball. Nate Oates in Alabama. Nate Oates is a good coach. Alabama took 59 three-point shots against Auburn Wednesday night. They made 22 of them. That's an SEC record. Kyra Lewis, again, he was the first basketball player in the SEC since 1996. He had a triple-double, 10 points, 10 rebounds, 13 assists. They lost the game. Auburn, 4 of their last 5 games in overtime, they've won them. That team's getting stronger, but I think they will have a tough time at Missouri tomorrow. That's just one of those games that, like, what are we here for? And Missouri is going to be licking their chops, just like Alabama will with LSU coming in, and Kentucky. Look, Kentucky's got one tomorrow. Ole Miss, that game's up in Lexington. I believe Kentucky will win that game, but Kermit Davis is getting better players in for Ole Miss. They'll be better. His 16-year run at Middle Tennessee State made them one of the better programs in the South. He's got better recruiting base, more facilities. He's in the best conference overall in America. Now, basketball-wise, everybody out there with an opinion, and there's a lot of them, are going to tell you that the Big Ten is the best league in college basketball this year. They may have 10 or 11 teams go to the NCAA tournament, all right? And last week you saw Indiana and Purdue play. Look, Indiana, this isn't a great Indiana team, but they did honor Bob Knight. I thought that was great. Quinn Buckner and so many of his former players. It's hard to believe, Shane, it's been 20 years since Bob Knight threw his last chair onto the court in Bloomington. I am a huge Bob Knight fan. I like his discipline and his hard, tough-nosed approach. And he gave some of the best advice I've ever heard about being successful in business and in life. He said before every game as the Indiana coach, he always looks at, and his coaches would look at the other team and look at and think of every possible way they could lose that game. And then he would backtrack from there and figure out how to win. And Bobby Knight won a hell of a lot of games. He had the 38-0 team in 1976, the last team to go undefeated, and they won the national championship. By the way, Alabama gave them a really strong push in the tournament that year, and Indiana ended up winning. And also, I got to say, Bob Knight, thumbs up on that sport coat. That is just an absolute beaut. You've got to love The Sport Cook by Bob Knight. All right, again, let's take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back in just a few minutes. We've got Frank Duffy joining us from Atlanta, and I may have jumped the gun here a little bit, but we're going to talk some more SEC football. And I want to say something real quick before we go to Frank. The SEC and college football, basketball, over 1,100 kids in the transfer portal in college football at last count. And I'm sure that number is going to grow. Then you get into the graduate transfers. Those are the guys that can play immediately, okay? Auburn last week, Boobie Whitlow, starting running back. I'm out of here. Well, he's going to be a fourth-year junior next year. If he goes within the conference, the traditional rule is you've got to sit for 2 years before you can play at another SEC school unless you get permission from the coach of the program that you left. Otherwise, it's normally 1 year. What's going to happen going forward? Is this just free agency? Kids have always been free to transfer. But how are you going to build a team? And if you talk to any coach who's coached more than 5 or 10 years, they'll tell you some of the best players they've ever had are kids that struggled for years, maybe a couple of years. They finally got it, and they had a 2 or 3 year career as a starter at respective school, wherever they were, but they were much better for it. You try doing that in real life, in the business world. Every time things get tough, the wind blows in your face, you quit there, you'll quit everything tough in your life. And you'll just be a quitter, and nobody will even remember your name. They won't know your hashtag. They won't know your social media. They won't know anything about you. And I'll tell you one thing. We're going to go to Mr. Good Time, Mr. New Orleans, Mr. LSU, after this break, to Frank Duffy. But listen in, sidelines.live, and for these messages from our sponsors.
The things in pocket, gunpowder, I'm gonna use it. Intention, feeling mental, gonna make you notice. Commotion, stupid emotion, been diving, detour leaning, no reason.
He's supposed to call him 4, right?
We don't just say we care, we show we care. At Ortho One, that's the motto we live by. We place an emphasis on seeing our patients as quickly as possible without sacrificing quality in the care that each patient deserves. Our experienced orthopedic physicians, all of whom are surgeons, display a genuine interest in your personal health. A concern for your time and a friendly, skilled staff are what you can expect every time you visit one of our offices in Arlington, Collierville, and Olive Branch. Fast, quality care. That's the Ortho One difference. Check them out at ortho1.org. You know what my man cave needs?
What's that, Rob?
A giant screen TV with surround sound.
You should go to gaddishome.com.
That's right. They can do all of this without costing us a fortune. They can also put in the security cameras and outdoor lighting you've been wanting forever.
What are you waiting for?
Hey, check them out at gaddishome.com or on our website, sidelines.live. That's Gaddis Home Innovation.
Now you've had a car wreck, so what will you do? Call Tom Martin's Body Shop, and they will help you. Tom will tell you how much, and maybe you'll cry. Give you a help with insurance, and that is no lie. And before you know it, your car is like new. Call Tom Martin's Body Shop if anyone hits you.
He still hasn't called yet.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you. Another hour to go here on Sidelines on a Friday afternoon. And, hey, it's never not college football season, college basketball season. And just a little sneak preview. College baseball kicking off around the country and in the SEC this weekend. And we've got a great college baseball analyst that has agreed to come on board with us. He is especially fond of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. And, hey, how can you not be? Mississippi State has the Caesar's Palace of college baseball stadiums down in Starkville. And they were cool with, attending and supporting college baseball before it was cool, kind of like Barbara Mandrell's old country song. I was country before country, was cool, putting peanuts in my Coke. And if we have anybody that is listening to the show today that is old enough, I guess, to remember when you put peanuts in your Coke, I'd love to hear a story about that. Did people really do that? I guess they did. I know my dad's old enough to remember because old man Brown played high school football back in the days of no face masks, Shane. And he'd broken his nose 3 or 4 times at least. He would give Jimmy Durante a run for crooked and broken schnozolas. But, one thing he does say, though, is when you played without face masks, the old leather helmets, you learned how to tackle properly. So if I was a football coach in today's age of reviews and reviews on top of the reviews of darn near every play, I would try using leather helmets as a way to teach my players to tackle properly. I don't think it would hurt, do you?
No, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, they use the padded, like, they look like the old-timey helmets, the padded ones for practice anyways, so why not just throw the leather ones on?
They almost look like those what wrestlers wear to keep from getting, a wrestler that doesn't wear the protective headgear to cover the ears ends up getting cauliflowered ears, and you look like an old hound dog, So, hey, I want to say something also, again, about one of our sponsors, Gaddis Home Innovations. That's G-A-T-T-A-S, Gaddis, G-A-T-T-A-S. Every single show, my dad always says, hey, remind people how they spell that last name. Most people probably think it's with an I. It's G-A-T-T-A-S, Gaddis Home Innovations. And man, if you like having a man cave, and who doesn't, home security cameras and all, GaddisHomeInnovations.com. Check them out on our website. All right. And something else, we're looking around at college football, college athletics in general, and there's so much concern what's going to happen with attendance going forward. The young kids are leaving the games early. That's been going on forever. You play teams that the outcome, especially when it's just it's like clubbing baby seals. You know what's going to happen. How many, people say, did you ever go watch the movie The Titanic? No, because I know what's going to happen. They hit an iceberg and the thing sunk. And that's one of the most annoying movies I've ever seen. And by the way, I've never seen Blazing Saddles, which is a great movie. I've never seen the movie E.T. about that worm riding around on a bicycle. I'm just not a fan of that. But anyway, what are we going to do to get these young kids? I've got 3 of them. They're 19, 21, and 23. I love them to death, man. They're great. But they don't leave games early. I never leave games early. I never left their games early coming up. So, you know what? Those of you that can't sit still for, well, granted, I know with the reviews the games are longer. Support your team. If you call them family, treat them like family. In some cases, that may not be the best advice. Thinking about Fred G. Sanford when Aunt Esther came from St. Louis. Man, that got ugly. But anyway, stick it out. It's not that tough to be there. Hey, wait till you get in the workforce and you work a 12-hour day. As Kemmons Wilson used to say, I like to work a half a day, 6 a.m., 6 p.m., 7 a.m., 7 p.m. You pick your 12 hours. Frank Duffy, welcome to the show. Mr. LSU on the way to New Orleans, and I can't imagine why anybody would want to go there except to eat the best food in the world. And at last report, they are still celebrating LSU's national championship beatdown of the Clemson Tigers.
I don't think we're going to be celebrating that for quite some time, Rob. That was a special one. There's no doubt.
Hey, look, when the Saints won the Super Bowl, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we had a huge Saints fan, quite a few of them in our office. He said 6 months later, he said they're still celebrating on Bourbon and Canal.
I will tell you a funny thing about the Saints win. Unfortunately, I did not get to go down to Miami. I'm a very big Saints fan. In fact, I was 6 years old when the Saints got to New Orleans in 1967. I can still remember John Gilliam crossing the goal line on that opening kickoff. But I did get a chance to go to Miami. But, of course, I was at the Superdome a month ago to watch LSU's game. In fact, I was there for all 4 of the national championship games, in the BCS and playoff era. And I will tell you, that feeling, that win, will go with us a long time. And the Saints win, it was incredible. But many of us love the Saints, but we have purple and gold in our veins. And there was just something special about this win against Clemson.
Funny thing, last week we had Jimmy Ott, ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge on. And last week I said, toward the end of the segment, I said, look, Archie Manning, Drew Brees, 2 of the most beloved icons in New Orleans. And he goes, let me stop you. He goes, don't ever say that again. He goes, Archie Manning, hey, he never had a winning season. He said, Drew Brees. Hey. Yeah. He goes, but unfortunately, he may be leaving. We don't know. But I know he was kidding. But Archie Manning and Drew Brees, the face of the Saints are those players. And then Tom Benson out there with the umbrella doing the dance and whatever. But Drew Brees, an old Texan from, Westlake High School in Austin? Yeah. And, of course, he played at Purdue. And quite a few great quarterbacks have played up there. I think he's got one more year left, don't you?
I do too. I really do. I think he's going to stay on. I have a feeling Taysom is probably going to be gone. I think if the Saints are smart, they'll actually have Teddy, because Teddy played great. I mean, those 5 games, the Saints wouldn't even have been in the playoff picture had he not held serve and won all 5 of those games. I think he very well could be the heir apparent, but I would say Drew's going to probably stay one more year. Those competitive juices. I think he wants one more crack at it. And of course, in a perfect world, there would be this young quarterback from right up the road that if there was ever a time for a Ricky Williams to trade all of our draft choices for one guy, this would be it. I mean, the dream scenario, of course, would be Joey B coming in and sitting for a year behind Drew. I don't think it's going to happen, but how awesome would that be? But no, you're right. Drew Brees, as a kid growing up in the 60s and being there in the 70s, and I was there for Archie's very first game against the Rams, Fearsome Foursome, when he took the ball over on 4th and 1 from the 1 yard line with like 3 seconds left. I was at the actual other end zone at Old Tulane Stadium. And look, as much as we love Archie, Drew's Archie with a winning record and a Super Bowl under his belt. That's how beloved he is in New Orleans. And let me tell you, he could run for governor and win. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
Yeah, in the state of Louisiana, I said this with Jimmy, and I said this to LSU fans a lot. It's all a religious connection throughout the state, above and below I-10, from Shreveport down to Bayou Lafourche, Morgan City. I can remember, Frank, growing up listening to AM 870 WWL New Orleans. Frank Glaude, the King Edward cigar time is 7 o'clock, and whenever a hurricane would be coming up, I remember them saying, all right, let's head down to Morgan City, and we've got Hokey Gajon's cousin Renee calling how things down there in Morgan City, and go, well, you know, we got the big studies are coming in there, but we hunkering down with we got a couple of pallets of Dixie beer. We're hanging in there tough. A breaker 19 come at you. How about you?
He's blowing in. I got to tell you that the rooftop is like a shaking up there, man.
Hey, I absolutely, Frank. I didn't know this till recently. You know, my dad was going to go to LSU. And about a month before he was going down there, and he had been given a preferred walk-on status to be a kicker, just to try out to play football down there. Then a spot in the architecture program opened at Auburn back in 1849. I'm sorry, 1949. No, he ended up. I could see myself, and I always have seen as an LSU fan. I just remember, you know, growing up listening on 870, and you could hear that up in Nova Scotia, and it's no accident that that's where all the occasions came from that settled down in Louisiana. But listening to John Ferguson, and I remember the 1979 LSU Southern Cal game.
Oh man,
yeah, Charles White, John Robinson came in there. 17-12. Man, I remember it like it was yesterday. LSU now, this team, Frank, let's kind of look at what just happened. I think they're the new standard. Jimmy Ott said last week, that or the 95 Nebraska team. But LSU beat 5 teams that won 11 or more games, 7 teams in the top 10, and 5 or 6 of those finished ranked in the top 10. Going forward, I believe they are the standard. And what are the odds of that happening again? And when you look at Jamar Chase and their receivers, Jordan Jefferson, their statistics in 2018, when Joe Burrow was a 56% passer to almost a 79% passer. In 1 year, Joe Burrow comes in and starts directing that passing game along with the most humble guy, kind of like the other guy, Tom Wopat in the Dukes of Hazzard. He didn't get a lot of credit, but he knows what he's doing. I think they're the new standard going forward, and that's going to be a tough bar and a tough standard to live up to.
Well, Steve Ensming, I assure you, was taking notes, and they probably have everything on tape, so I think we'll be good there. And I think Miles Brennan will do a good job. In fact, I happened to be on LSU's campus when we had the parade, the celebration later that next weekend, and I actually had the opportunity, the float that Miles Brennan was on happened to stop right in front of us, and he and I actually had a chance to lock eyes, and I just pointed at him and said, "You're next," and he looked right back at me. I got this. And I think he's got talent. He's got a stronger arm than Joe. Joe was incredible, and he will go down in history. He'll have a statue. In fact, if they're not melting bronze somewhere right now in the great state of Louisiana, that's a shame. But I'll know he'll have a statue, and there's no replacing him. But I think Miles Brennan can take the offense. He's got a strong enough arm. And if we keep anywhere near the semblance of the cadence that we have, throwing on first down, throwing on second down, being aggressive, and we've got now these wide receivers that we've got. I mean, yes, we lost Jefferson, we lost Thaddeus Moss, but we've got great wide receivers. I don't see them really missing a beat. I really don't. And if we can have John Emery step up and be a good runner, I think there's a really good chance of a repeat. I do.
Yeah, LSU, the kind of talent they have, they lost, obviously, Dave Aranda, and Joe Brady's gone, but it's kind of like going to Galatoire's or Antoine's. You have a great meal Friday night, go back Saturday night, I bet it'll be just as good, if not better. Frank, we're running tight. I know you had some trouble getting in. Be careful heading to New Orleans. We got to go to Matt Wyatt now, talk some Mississippi State football, but let's get you back on next week. Want to hear about New Orleans, and you're going to be our Mardi Gras correspondent as we get closer to Fat Tuesday, if you'll do that, okay? Contract is in the mail.
I'm riding in Bacchus on Sunday night. I'm riding on the Buccaneers float, and tomorrow I'm heading in my racehorse. My filly's running in the 3rd race at the fairgrounds on the day that they're running the Risen Star and the Rachel Alexander, so I'll be able to report on how my horse did and how much fun it was on the parade route.
All right, hey, thank you. Be careful. Thank you so much. All right,
brother.
You bet. Matt Wyatt, thank you so much. Those of you that are Mississippi State fans, you know him well from Prattville, Alabama. Prattville, I'm sure your big rival now is Pike Road, but you came to Mississippi State in the mid-'90s, had an excellent career there, and now you've got one of the best sports talk shows around in Mississippi. You follow the Bullies better than anybody. We're glad to have you on here. Tell us, are they still fired up about the Mike Leach hire, and what about this recruiting class? Did he fill the needs?
Yeah, Rob, thanks for having me on. Yeah, there is a lot of excitement still kind of hanging around the program and among the fan base with Mike Leach coming in. It's one of those things, too, where because of the timing of it, there was this feeling a little bit of not necessarily getting to, just kind of hang out with the new coach or the new staff and get to know them for a little bit. There wasn't like a grace period for them, Rob, because, normally you'll have coaching changes at the end of the regular season. This one came at the end of, the bowl season effectively for State. So when Leach and his staff came in, he immediately hit the ground running and recruiting, trying to lead up to this February signing day and getting the off-season program started and that kind of thing. So they've been hard at work, but yeah, there's definitely an excitement about Leach in town, about the staff, and among the fan base, just kind of looking forward to, even spring. I think they're going to sell a bunch of tickets to the spring game because people want to see what that offense is going to look like.
Matt, I like a great quote from Dabo Swinney, the coach at Clemson. It's only impossible if that's what you believe. And growing up, an Auburn fan, and I've been to 37 football games in Starkville. I've been to a lot of games there, not just when they played Auburn, but just different times. Got a lot of clients over the years from Starkville. You're from Alabama. The similarities between Auburn and Mississippi State, they go on and on and on. I grew up listening to Jack Crystal. You were lucky. We all were to hear him. Their fan base, they love that school, even if they didn't have teams, don't they?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. It's a unique thing. There are people who, may have grown up Alabama fans, have grown up LSU fans, and might not really understand the perspective of a lot of Mississippi State fans. You're from bigger states with programs who've won national championships. But if you spend a little time here, it really is an interesting dynamic in that, you're in the state of Mississippi, which is a relatively small state. You got a less than 3 million people total population, like 2.9 million, something from, top to bottom in this state. It's a really small state population-wise. But in the state, you've got 2 Southeastern Conference schools. You got 3 Division I schools when you look at Southern Miss.
Yep.
And the Southern Miss fan base is not huge, but when you consider the sparsity of the state of Mississippi from a population standpoint compared to, Alabama's twice the size from a population standpoint, yet still 2 SEC schools here, and both are selling out their stadium at 61 to 64, 65,000 people nowadays, which is pretty incredible. So, yeah, it's a passionate fan base, win or lose, no doubt about it.
Well, it's an ag school, great architecture school, engineering. They've got the honors college now. Lots of kids from Memphis, Matt, are going to Mississippi State. One of my son's best friends is down there. Absolutely loves it. Looking what Dan Mullen did in football. Jackie Sherrill, you played there with him, got the program in 97 to 2000, that 4-year run. Man, they were tough. Really good. And that comeback win in the Independence Bowl in the snow is one of the coolest games I've ever watched. But when you win games like that, you do it because you're physically conditioned, mentally conditioned, and, you just believe, you find excuses to win. There have been a lot of great moments in state history. Dan Mullen and Mississippi State were the first team ever to be ranked number 1 in the college football rankings. And that means a lot. And Dan Mullen got State to averaging 8 or 9 wins a year. And then when he left, Joe Moorhead, for whatever reason, it didn't work out. You're close to the program. Your support didn't wane, though. The fans still come. Your facilities, most people, they don't go to the other campuses. but you've got the Caesar's Palace of baseball stadiums. The hump is a little old, and it at some point I'm sure they'll improve it. But I got to say this: that's one of the loudest places. I don't like hearing those cowbells that much, but I think it's great because I love it because it's unique to Mississippi State, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. That cowbell, especially football games. And, Rob, several years ago, you go back probably, it's been 10 years ago now, when they began the Ring Responsibly deal.
Yeah.
Where, you're going to have, back then, 10 years ago, I didn't think there was any way that the fans would do that, where they're saying, okay, look, you're going to ring them like crazy, but then when the opposing center gets over the football, fixing to snap it, you got to stop and just yell. And I thought, they're not going to do that. But they do it. If you go to a state game, it's crazy because it's this weird change from cowbells to yelling every play, and the fans actually kind of bought in. So a little bit of a tradition. And, yeah, you're right. There are a lot of people from Memphis that are, and in that area, DeSoto County, Mississippi, and in the Memphis area, near Shelby County, that, are tied to the school, come to school here, have kids come here. And there's a lot of pride in that from a Mississippi State standpoint. But I will say, make no mistake about it, under Dr. Mark Keenum, the president, in his tenure over a decade now, he has made no bones about it at any point that his priority and the school's priority is recruiting students, not just athletes, but students from the state of Mississippi. And he said, we're going to put our stake in the ground of we're the university that kids in this state want to go to. And if we get kids from out of state, that's great. That's great if they want to come here. But we want the kids from here. And that has really been a successful approach for the university.
Well, no question. I just know a lot of I've got one son at Auburn and got a lot of friends at Mississippi State. They're some of the smartest kids I know. One thing they all have in common, they love hunting and fishing. And that is definitely, which I do too. If it swims, flies, crawls, or runs, I'll shoot it. And I'll eat it too.
Man, and that's why I went to state.
That's right.
I had options coming out of high school. And like you mentioned, being from Alabama and went to Prattville High School. But one of the greatest things about it is, two things. For me, this is, again, 20-some-odd years ago, but two things. One is they were the first school to offer me a scholarship. It was really early. It's like the end of my sophomore year of high school. And that was one thing. The other thing was once we came and visited, we took a drive out to Oktibbeha County Lake.
Mm-hmm.
We took a drive and spent some time looking around the Noxubee Refuge, which is not too far from there, in Noxubee County. Met some of the players that were on the team, and they were taking me out and showing me their deer camp, and they're shooting houses. We're walking around the woods, and I thought, man, this is heaven right here because, I can go play SEC football. There's no traffic to deal with here in this town. I don't have to deal with that. And this place is, it's like a hunting and fishing gem in terms of this part of North Mississippi. So it was a big selling point for me that many years ago, no doubt.
Yeah, listen, I can tell you, as a young boy, my father being a big bird watcher and being in the Scouts, I needed to get the bird watching merit badge. I hiked every square inch of Noxubee Wildlife Refuge looking for brown-headed nuthatches and red-cockaded woodpeckers. And I've been all over it. I'll tell you something.
The thing about those woodpeckers is you can't find them when you're looking for them until they find you and start knocking a hole in the, your fascia up on the side of your roof or something.
That's right.
They're around where you don't want them, and then you go looking for them in the woods, you can't find them.
That's right. They're elusive. And in the state, you look now, and I know right now, it's basketball season. We had Sonny Smith on, who does the color analyst on the Auburn Basketball Network, former coach, and every time we like to talk, and he'll bring it up about Mississippi State's basketball team, okay? They're big, and if anybody can go on a run, he thinks they can. And, you cover all the sports, Mississippi State. Just because you played football means that you love all the sports because you're a bully. Talk about this basketball team and what's going on at the hump with Ben Howland because, hey, he's been to 3 Final Fours. He can recruit, and the state fans love him.
Yeah, and they're in a tough spot right now, I'll tell you, Rob, because of that loss back this past week against Ole Miss. You look at their net ranking, you look at kind of where they are in the projections in terms of the tournament field. They're on the outside looking in, and that loss, they were really making up ground. They had won, I think it was 5 out of 6. It might have been 7 of 8. And their only loss in that stretch over the course of a couple of weeks, was to Kentucky on the road in Lexington.
Yeah.
Prior to that, their only loss was a neutral site, against a good Oklahoma team. They were on a pretty good little stretch. But losing that game to a Ole Miss team that only had 3 conference wins at the time. They've got 4 now, and 3 of them are consecutive. It just knocked them back. So they're up against it here at this point of the year. They've got to win a bunch of games going forward. And there's a belief even that with this team and a potential draft pick in Reggie Perry that they're going to have to win a bunch of games on the way out in the regular season and make noise in the SEC tournament just to even have a shot to squeeze into the NCAA tournament. And that would be a heck of a step back, honestly, for a program that was a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament last year. It would just be a heck of a step back. It's also a program that, there's support, but there's nothing. They haven't had any of the kind of support consistently for men's basketball that they had 10, 15 years ago when Rick Stansbury was the head coach.
Yeah.
A lot of empty seats in the hump. So they're up against it. That basketball team right now, they've got great potential. But right now, it's all it is potential, and their backs are squarely against the wall in terms of trying to get into the NCAA tournament.
And they're going to go on the road to Fayetteville, to Bud Walton Arena to play Arkansas. And Eric Musselman, he'll have that team ready. But they are, one thing about Arkansas, they're the smallest team in the SEC, not much on the inside. Alabama is small. They don't have much on the inside. But, man, they've got John Petty and Kyra Lewis. But it's SEC basketball. It's a lot of fun. And State has always had, just watching this SEC basketball since I was born. I've been around since '63, so they've always been. They're competitive in everything. But I will say something else about Mississippi State: their commitment, their facilities, the Seal Center, Leo Seal, and all that. When they put in the football stadium, closed in the end zone, it is so loud. And you just, but and as far as we always, it was at Dooley's Barbecue, we'll come out and cater, when we're down there. But the downtown, what they call the Cotton District, that town has really grown, upgraded, whatever you want to call it. But it's a fun place to go, and their fans, again, they love the school. I mean, they love the teams because they're part of Mississippi State, don't they?
That's exactly right. And you're right, okay, so the program has grown. You just look at football, for an example, because there's always been baseball support, huge support for baseball. They were leading the country in baseball attendance really before anybody else got interested in it. And but from a football perspective, Rob, you go back 20 years ago when I played, the stadium did not have a closed-in end zone, and it only seated probably, 45,000 people?
Yes, that's what it was.
And it was kind of, you were still in that neighborhood at the end of the Sylvester Croom era in 2008. And, to young people, that sounds like a long time ago, but we know that was not that long ago.
No.
What basically you could boil this down to, when Dan Mullen got the job prior to the 2009 season, he took over a program that was at the bottom of the barrel. It was bottom rung in the SEC. It was at the bottom in terms of support. It was at the bottom in terms of facilities, in terms of roster. There was no momentum, and it was bottom rung. And basically a decade later, when he handed it off to the next guy, Joe Moorhead, the State's facilities are no longer in the bottom half of the SEC.
No.
Now, people who've never been there would be like, really? But if you go and you see not only the stadium, but the football facility, practice stuff, everything, you come away going, yeah, they've got facilities that are in the top half of a 14-team league. They really do. And then, fan support, selling out the stadium at 60,000 plus. I mean, you're talking about on game days, literally twice the number of people there every home game that you had 10, 12 years ago. So it really has grown quickly. And part of the reason I think they made the decision on Joe Moorhead when they did is because they just were in a desperate spot to not lose any of that momentum that it took them about a decade to build.
Yeah, I can remember, Matt, in the late 90s, Mississippi State was playing over at, back then, the Peach Bowl before the Chick-fil-A Bowl, and the state had 25, maybe 30,000 fans go to that game. And, you know, and what I just always loved to used to hear, well, we can wrap this one in maroon and white. Mississippi State has won the game at Scott Field in Starkville, Mississippi. Jack Crystal, and this message from my Utes on the square. I mean, you just gotta love. I will say this: I'm an AM radio junkie. I spend a lot of time. I've got a farm with the hunting rights down in the Delta between Marks and Vance. I always like to say it's a suburb of Vance. It's just like it's the other speck on the map, but near Crowder. And I love the people down there. My grandparents are from the Delta on the Arkansas side in Helena. You're from Prattville. I spend a lot of time in Alabama, Mississippi. I love it. And I think there ought to be a sign when you cross into Mississippi that says it's only impossible if that's what you believe. Because I think there is no limit to what they can do. And my dad has been down there with some friends of his that are huge Mississippi State fans and sat in the Leo Seal Center many a game. And, you know, I don't like losing anybody, but y'all are our cousins and great people down there. Will you come back on the show with us?
Oh, yeah. Call me anytime, Bob. I appreciate you.
Man, you were recommended by a lot of Bulldogs I work with, and you are better than advertised. So, hey, tell people real quick how they can follow you.
Yeah, best thing to do is find me on Twitter, at Radio Wyatt. So just radio and then my last name. And my website's mattwyattmedia.com. We're all over the place, podcasts and on social media. So that'd be the best way to look us up. And I just appreciate it very much.
And if they're in Mississippi or anywhere, they want to hear your daily radio show, you're on, what, 12 to 2?
Yeah, I'm on 12 to 2 every day, in the middle of the day on ESPN Jackson, which is our state capital here. And great station there. They've got local shows throughout the lineup. And it's a really good station. And then it re-airs at night in Batesville and Vicksburg. And we put it on social media every day as well.
Hey, thank you so much, man. You are a credit to Mississippi State University, and I hope you'll come back with us. You said you would, so we're going to get you back on next week. Let's talk a little about Bully Baseball. I know it kicks off this weekend, and not necessarily the biggest series, whatever, but anytime the Bullies play, and I will say this, you are what put college baseball on the map. Remember those games in the early 80s with Will Clark, Thigpen, and all that? That's what made SEC baseball and college baseball a TV attraction. So thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much.
You bet. All right, let's do this real quick. We are going to be joined, hopefully, by Jimmy Hodge here in just a moment and talk a little more on SEC. I want to talk about some of the recruiting stuff that just happened. And then we're going to go to Cole Kubelik from the SEC Network. Cole is one of the better analysts that I see on ESPN. And but before we do that, we're going to talk with Jimmy Hodge from Chicago. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Hey, Jimmy, we've been talking a lot today, SEC football, basketball, recruiting, and all. And I want to ask you a question. With what's going on right now in college athletics, the money, $44.3 million paid to each member of the SEC. And that's more than a lot of the schools' athletic budgets were 15 years ago. We just had Matt Wyatt on from Mississippi State. You've seen tremendous growth in their facilities and everything with Mississippi State. Looking around the league, it's true. I mean, it's only the limits that you put on yourself. How many programs, like, say, South Carolina and Missouri, who have big fan bases, and they're the flagship universities of those states, what are their chances of becoming a big-time power?
Well, with the money that's available right now, they have a chance to be as good as anybody. I mean, South Carolina under Spurrier won 11 games 3 years in a row. it comes down to, in my mind, no matter how much money you have or what your financial resources are, the ability of your coaching staff to evaluate talent. Secondly, decide if this player can fit in to the culture at your program. And then see if that player is able to handle competition, because in many cases, they've always been the best player by far, and not only on their team, but maybe in an entire conference. And lots of times you don't know that till they actually get to a college campus. And so that's the job of the coaching staff, to be convinced that they'll be able to make that jump and handle competition. And then once they get there, of course, develop those players as the weeks and the months and the years go along.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Jimmy, didn't mean to cut you off, but Tracy Rock left Tennessee. He's gone to South Carolina. Will Muschamp, this is going to be year number 5. With what's going on at Clemson, and I asked this earlier in the show to Barrett Sallee, who's joined us from Atlanta, who's with SiriusXM and CBS Sports. Can South Carolina, again, given what's going on at Clemson right now, they're on a run they've won 55, 56 games Clemson has the last 4 years. South Carolina, can they do enough to save Will Muschamp's job?
Well, that just comes down to their offense. I mean, that was the Achilles heel at Florida. That's where they struggled at South Carolina. And every time he's made an offensive coordinator hire, after the 2012 year at Florida when they went 12-1, it just hadn't worked out. And I think Bobo is really going to be a great addition for them. And I think Kalinsky has a very high ceiling that, under the circumstances you've discussed with where Clemson is in the college football pecking order, and the fact that they've been, in the playoffs 5 years in a row, and of course they play in a conference that makes it very favorable for them to be able to do that and have that kind of success. But yeah, South Carolina has to obviously has to respond, and right now, they haven't been able to do that. So yeah, they can, because I think between the Carolinas, Atlanta's 3.5 hours away. They have a metropolitan population of 6 million. Yeah, you can get 21 good football players a year.
Yeah.
I mean, and even if it's obviously the other schools are going after them too, but still, there's a lot of really outstanding high school football players that can be developed by quality coaching staffs and with those kind of facilities and strength programs and all these nutrition specialists that every school has now. Sure, they can.
And what about Missouri?
I think same thing. They've got a great opportunity. When they were in the Big 12, they had no shot at the top Kansas City and St. Louis players. But now that they're in the SEC, and early on they had success. You just obviously have to sustain it. But yeah, they can. No doubt about it. I mean, they again, I don't think any school in SEC has a disadvantage when it comes to recruiting, because any high-level high school football player is going to want to play in the SEC, and you can work that, two different ways. If you're in one of the upper tier programs in the SEC, the coaching staff can sell, hey, we send players to the NFL if they're good enough, and then you're going to have a chance to be in the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
And if you're in a lower tier program, You can say, well, like somebody like Bob Stoops. You can say, hey, I've coached on a national championship coaching staff. I know good football players when I see them. And there's no question in my mind you can be an outstanding player for us.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, I'm with you. We are up against a hard break because we have Cole Kubelik from the SEC Network is going to join us here in a minute for an interview. But look, we want to get you on next week. What I want to do next week, too, is get more into the Missouri factor. They've got 13 Big 8 championships, but they've been in the SEC. 2 of their first 3 years they went to Atlanta. We're going to pick that back up because your ability to break it down and make sense out of all this is a gift from the football gods. But thank you so much for joining us. Let's take a quick commercial break. But before we break, let me say something about our sponsors. I want to thank Matei's Garage, family owned and in business since 1972. Matei's Garage is best known for providing quality automotive repair at a fair and reasonable price. We can accommodate most makes and models, including European and Asian vehicles. Our services include everything from basic maintenance, such as oil service and tires, to major engine and transmission service. And they've got 3 mechanics over there that are as good as it gets. Andrew, who's in the Marine Reserve, hey man, he's had to fix vehicles and machines under the worst of circumstances. He will get it done. Dean, Matt, Larry Cervetti. I've known Larry 42 years, 1982 Christian Brothers graduate, 86 Tennessee Vol graduate. As good as it gets. Just going in there and talking to Larry, you'll walk out feeling like you took a just a bath in goodness. I mean, they're great people to deal with. Also, pimentos. Holiday Ham and Pimento has been in Memphis. Holiday Ham since '93. About 3 years ago, Don and Trey Jordan introduced pimentos. 6450 Poplar Avenue, 3751 South Houston Levee in Collierville. Margarita Mondays with quesadillas, beer and burger Tuesdays, $5 burgers every day in the month of February after 5 p.m. Pimentos, it's not just for lunch. They have dinner open every day, including Sundays till 9. Check them out. Have your birthday parties there. Catering, best taco bar I've ever had. Jose Cuervo would love it. Okay? One other one, Rocky's Alterations, 1866 Poplar Crest Cove, across the street from Pimentos. If it involves a needle and thread, men's and women's alterations, men's suits and sport coats, dress shirts, they got it all. Rocky's Alterations. You can find them all on our website at sidelines.live. We'll be right back with Cole Kubelik from the SEC Network.
Kitchens Unlimited is celebrating 50 years in the business of building kitchens and baths. They are located at 3550 Summer Avenue near the intersection of Summer and Highland. Joe and Karen Casson are friends of mine. I've known them 27 years. They're open weekdays, Monday through Friday from 10 to 5, not open on the weekend. Check out their website, kitchensunlimited.net.
You know, Rob, I'm looking at their website. I've been in Kitchens Unlimited before. They have great inventory. It's a great way that they take you through the process of talking to you about what you want to do and what your budget is. You feel like it's a very personal process all along the way. And as anyone knows, bathrooms and kitchens, they sell homes, they make homes. So it's a great store.
You're right, and I don't think I could have said it any better. Women know more about what makes the kitchen work, what makes the bathroom work. These people are the best. They work with architects and builders and developers throughout the Mid-South. Go to Kitchens Unlimited, 3550 Summer Avenue near the intersection of Summer and Highland. They've been in the business now 50 years. Check out their website, kitchensunlimited.net. They are a member of the Sidelines.live team. Check them out on our website, kitchensunlimited.net.
We don't just say we care, we show we care. At Ortho One, that's the motto we live by. We place an emphasis on seeing our patients as quickly as possible without sacrificing quality in the care that each patient deserves. Our experienced orthopedic physicians, all of whom are surgeons, display a genuine interest in your personal health. A concern for your time and a friendly, skilled staff are what you can expect every time you visit one of our offices in Arlington, Collierville, and Olive Branch. Fast, quality care. That's the Ortho One difference. Check them out at ortho1.org.
All right, Rob Brown, back here with you, Sidelines. We're about to go to an interview we just did with Cole Kubelik from SEC Network, talking about the SEC. Thank you, Duncan Williams Asset Management, our title sponsor. 50 years, since 51 now, since 1969. Check them out on our website, sidelines.live. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors. And now let's go to Cole Kubelik from the SEC Network.
Okay, we're joined now by Cole Kubelik, analyst on the SEC Network, and also one of the hosts on the three-man front, which is every day, Monday through Friday, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Jock's 94.5 in Birmingham. And Cole, I watched you for a long time. I remember when you played at Auburn. You're one of the better analysts that I see anywhere. But your critical analysis of offensive line play is better than anybody. So I guess the first question I'd like to ask you is, why is it so hard for schools out there, not just Auburn, but just in the SEC and around the country, to find the really good, especially the elite offensive tackles?
Oh, I think there's a couple of reasons behind that. I think number one, development at younger age has begun to slide a little bit. I think now you have spread offenses, up-tempo offenses, and essentially they have used those as a way to skate around above-average offensive line play. Not sustaining blocks, not having to get movement at the point of attack, creating space, getting rid of the football quickly. You don't really have to be a great offensive lineman to be successful in a lot of those schemes. Now, that's not all of them, but in a lot of them. And I think when that's the case, maybe the lack of emphasis on developing those positions goes away. So those guys aren't as ready to play once they get into college. I mean, a lot of the college systems are using the same thing. And so I think the lack of emphasis on finishing blocks, straining blocks, and maybe the lack of practice time, because you got to work on going fast, you got to work on doing things at the line of scrimmage, you got to work on the assortment of plays that you're going to have, and that takes away from some of the individual periods. I think the mentality of football has changed a little bit, and that has a little bit something to do with it. So it's always been one of the more difficult positions to evaluate, and I think it's the way the game has changed, it's made it even more so. I think also, too, high school and college, you look at the amount of full contact practices that have been taken away. The only way to be great as an offensive lineman is to do it against people full speed that are trying to make you look bad. That's how you have to learn how to do it. And they've taken a large portion of that practice time away, so essentially your games become your practices and become your development periods, because you're not going full speed in practice very much other than that. So that's probably the biggest reason of all as to why, not necessarily why it's gotten hard to find the recruits, but why it's become very difficult to develop that position.
And what are your thoughts about the 7-on-7 camps? They started out in Texas, and they're now everywhere. In the summer, the kids are all over the place, and it seems like they're missing a lot of the workouts with their own teams.
Oh, there's a place for it, and I think as long as you don't definitively judge your team by their 7-on-7 success, it can benefit what you're going to do and who you're going to be and what kind of players you have. But let's be honest, it's not in pads, and you're not going against a defensive line or a group of defenders that are trying to attack you and rush you and bat the ball down or knock the ball loose or knock your quarterback out of the game. So it takes a big chunk of the reality out of the game, and I think it can create a little bit of false pretense as to protection, timing, things like that can make it a little bit more difficult. But like I said, it has its place. You know, that feel, that rhythm, that nonverbal communication between quarterbacks and receivers, that wherewithal of who likes the ball thrown a certain place. You don't get that without going out and throwing to your guys. And so, I think there's a part of teamwork that can be built through that as well. Just going out and competing. I'm all for competing in anything that you do. And obviously, you go out in 7-on-7, you're playing to win. So there's a competition level that comes with that.
Yeah. Look in the last 5 years in the SEC. Let's look at Auburn's biggest rivals, Alabama, Georgia, LSU. They've all signed, a good many more offensive linemen than Auburn has, and Auburn's had some unfortunate injuries as well. But the last couple of years, Auburn, after 9 straight years of producing 1,000-plus yard rusher, they haven't really come close to doing that. It's been more of a running back by committee. Auburn made a change on the offensive line. J.B. Grimes is gone. Now Jack McNeil Jr., after the last couple of years, 3 years over at Ole Miss, with a very impressive resume. He's been in the NFL, a Super Bowl ring. He's the new offensive line coach at Auburn. And whether Chad Morris made that hire or Gus did or they collaborated, what do you think about that hire and what does he bring to Auburn that they maybe haven't had and really need?
Well, I think it gives them a chance to sort of hit the reset button to a certain extent. I've talked to players that have played for Coach Picknell. They're all big fans of him. They all like him. You look at his resume, it's very difficult to say that he's not a guy that could come in and have some success. And I think some of those ideas, fresh thinking can all be healthy for the Auburn offense, the Auburn football team. The reality is going to be what kind of a voice does he have inside the facility. If he's allowed to really give ideas, if he's allowed to really implement new strategies, new thought processes, and help iterate those onto the field, then it could be a good hire. But if he's not allowed to have that voice, then it's not going to make much of a difference.
And another offensive line coach who's now the new head coach at Arkansas, Sam Pittman, the last 4 years did a really good job with Georgia. And in recruiting, they went from being the 105th class, they finished 29th or 30th, depending on the service. And that doesn't count Felipe Franks, the kicker from Duke, and a linebacker from Oklahoma they got that are going to be transfers. What do you think about him making that transition from position coach at a power school like Georgia to head coach at another conference member like Arkansas?
So there's going to be obviously a transition period, and you're not going to be able to sit here and say, well, I know he's going to have success, or I know he's going to do well because he hasn't done it before. And I understand that. But when you look where Sam Pittman's been, he's been at Arkansas before, so he knows the landscape there. He's been at Tennessee, been at Georgia. I mean, Sam Pittman's been around big-time college football coaches for a long time. So I think because of that, he's someone who is more ready to take over and become a quality head coach than a lot of other assistants that are moving into that position that we've seen. I have confidence in Sam. I think Sam could do a great job if he gets support. It's going to take time. It's a massive rebuild. And as long as Arkansas fans know that and understand that, he'll get it right. And he'll get the recruits in, he'll get the talent in. You've already seen a bit of a shift in what he's been able to bring in and the attention he's been able to bring to the school. That's all positive. But right now, it's just time. It's kind of like Jeremy at Tennessee. Some of these guys just need a little bit of time. Look at the Mark Fix model at Kentucky. A lot of people, year 2, year 3, wanted him gone. And the next thing you know, he's putting together historic seasons that school's never seen. So he's a guy that I have faith in, that I have confidence in, but it's going to take some time for him to get it the way that people want it.
Right. Let's head out to Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher is going to be in his 3rd year in a 10-year, $75 million guaranteed contract. Texas, regarded as the best high school football in America. I don't really agree with that. I think they have played high school football, but per capita, Alabama, Mississippi, and then with Georgia and Florida, I think they're as good as it gets. Why has Texas A&M in the last 20 years, all that talent, only had one season where they won 10 or more games, and that was Kevin Sumlin's first year with quarterback got help. It's just kind of a shock. But Jimbo has won. He was at Auburn. You played with him. Great quarterback coach, recruiter. He was at LSU with Nick Saban. I don't know how good Kellen Mond could be, but
Tell me what you think about Texas A&M and why they aren't where people think they should be, especially being in Texas with all the athletes and all the money.
Dave.
I think part of why they aren't where they should be, number one, would be they've never really been there. And I think we get a little bit consumed with, oh, well, they have the resources that they should be there. It's a little bit more than that. Kind of like what we said about the Kentucky thing. It takes time to build culture. It takes time to build attitude, demeanor, and for the entire program to have an understanding of what you need to be on a daily basis. It's going to take a little bit of time for Jimbo to get that right. I have confidence that Jimbo will be a guy that can A&M where people want it to be and think that it should be. He's recruiting it in a different way. He's placing a little bit more emphasis on the line of scrimmage, which is where A&M has been lacking for quite some time. And if that begins to change, the skill position guys are going to be there. Their offense is going to be really good this year. Defense, I'm not as confident. I love Coach Elko. I think he's great. But I don't know if they have enough players second and third level to be one of the better defenses in the SEC. Yeah, I mean, finding defensive linemen is hard. Speaking of that, we've been talking about the offensive line a lot, but when you talk about the great front sevens, and you're, I believe, absolutely right. Day in and day out, when you go to practice, when you play college football at Auburn on the offensive line, when you're butting heads with those stud defensive linemen, and same goes for the defensive guys, butting heads with the offensive linemen, I just think it makes you better. I'd say there's 6 or 7 schools in the country that year in and year out have that elite 7-front talent. It'd be Clemson, Georgia, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, LSU, and Ohio State, typically. Why are there so few schools that can put that kind of talent out there and so few defensive linemen available? In your opinion, that's the key. I think you kind of answered your own question there. There's not a lot of talent at those positions that combine size, speed, and athleticism. And the best recruiters are able to get the best talent that include that. So there may be guys that have similar skill level but are 280 or 270 or 6'1" of feet as opposed to 6'4", 6'5", and 290 and 300. So I think it's limited the amount of legitimate big boy defensive line front seven talent, and there's only a handful of schools that are going to get those. So, I mean, I feel like and then you take some that are going to be spread around. Davion Clowney at South Carolina. Javon Kinlaw at South Carolina this year. You go look at Justin Matabike at A&M last year. Myles Garrett when he was at A&M. So you're still going to have other great guys that are sprinkled around in other places, and that's going to thin it out even a little bit more. Yeah, it just seems that when the SEC schools play, say, a Big 12 school, those offenses look really good, and then you saw at Oklahoma, they were not really much of a challenge at all for LSU's front seven, and this wasn't considered to be one of LSU's better defenses. I think that's also kind of misleading.
About 30 seconds.
A lot of us have ever seen, maybe I've ever seen in college football. Let's talk about a couple of other coaching changes. Ole Miss and Mississippi State have new coaches. Lane Kiffin's at Ole Miss, Mike Leach at Mississippi State.
KPPS, West Memphis, Marion, Arkansas, Memphis, Tennessee.
Talking about Ole Miss and Mississippi State, and what I'm going to do is next week we'll pick up things.